is a decent hero, very well-rounded, and scales very well throughout from the early into that of late game as well. Provides the early game CC, early game gank potential, and a very flexible hero all in all. So coming up from the side of J-Threx, or not J-Threx Inferno rather, but D.Va, we have the Catherine ban. Relatively standard, but of course with that Catherine being banned out, the next best hero, or rather the next best captain, very flexible one as well, would be that of Lance, and would be picked up by the side of Nebulae.
Yep, and now we are looking what the return pick will be the first pick. So both teams going for those captain picks. We've got the Lance secured, and in opposition to that, the Grace, both very good roamers at this point in time, and especially with the Catherine that was banned out, you're really limiting the roam pool there. And right now, it really seems to be focused on these kind of aggressive roamers being very strong in the current meta.
Definitely. However, the side of Nebulae, if we do see Iron Gudai play, then Lance maybe just put on that, not in the captain role, but in the jungler role. So that is a change as well. So if Iron Gudai will be playing, however, we do see an Idris being banned out from the side of D.Vas, and Idris, all in all, I guess Crystal Idris very strong currently in the current meta, but however, I don't see him being very viable at all. In Southeast Asia, at least, I know I'll get a lot of flack for saying CP Idris is not viable, but just based on numbers itself, I think CP Idris only won once throughout the entirety of Vainglory in Southeast Asia.
And there's going to be the Black Feather pickup that we've seen a lot of well in the current meta. So it's interesting that you're right, you say really the Idris ban is maybe not worth it, but I feel that a lot of the time we see the ban go through, and perhaps that's also why we don't see Idris being picked up afterwards.
Definitely, but then again, it just might be a targeted ban against that of Trophies, who played a CP Idris, in which the side of Nebulae came out with two tank-like heroes just to protect Trophies, because as we all know, Trophies is a mage main, and that is one thing to consider for the side of D.Va when they go up against Nebulae. And so I really like the Black Feather picked up from the side of Nebulae, just in case, the side of, or rather from the side of D.Va, just in case Nebulae just comes up with a Scarf or a Celeste, and Black Feather just checks Scarf and Celeste very well after he gets his items. However, we will be seeing very similar drafting coming out from the side of Nebulae, picking out a CP Sky that will be placed in lane. I think this is a lot of speculations, to be honest, but because in last week itself we saw Trophies on this CP Sky, and he played it in that of late.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't think Sky is a bad pick at all against Black Feather. You have the mobility, and as long as you can dodge out the on points, then you're negating a lot of the damage and a lot of the defense that Black Feather provides for themselves. But it's a bit of a skill-based game there, and it'll be interesting to see that now we have that Lyra picked up, and more than likely your speculation of the Lance being put into the jungle as weapon power jungler is going to be the case. And how do you think the side of Divine Aurora can Taka? They just honestly,
when you ask me that question, the most logical pickup at this point in time would be that of Taka. Taka can burst Sky down almost immediately, just dodge out the forward barrage, so we strike and just reposition with the Kaiten and Etsuretsu. So honestly, if that's a little too much honesty there, but all in all, Lance can be a very good frontliner, but what happens is that with Lance in front, all Taka really have to do is just dodge out those impales and get in wall, which is very easy for a mobile hero like that of Taka. However, the side of D.Va will settle for Fox and Black Feather and Grace to round it off. And as for the side of Nebulae, we will be seeing that weapon-powered Lance, Sky, and Lyra.
Oh, okay, so with that pickup, we're going to be seeing a CP Black Feather on the side of Divine Aurora, and it's not too uncommon to see recently that the CP Black Feather being picked up as well. It still works quite well, but I think they wanted some range in their kind of team to have a bit of balance. They didn't want to go triple melee there with the Taka pickup, so picking that Vox up instead and keeping Black Feather in the jungle is going to be their decision for that one. And looking at the two drafts here, which team do you think looks stronger?
As long as Nebulae can execute the team comp, in which they just have to really protect that of trophies on that CP sky. As long as they can achieve that, as long as they pull that off, then definitely Nebulae will come out on top in terms of draft. But honestly, all in all, I must say that D.Va drafted very, very well. No doubt they do not have the Taka just to refrain from getting into triple melee comp like you mentioned. But CP Blackfeather does relatively well against the Sky if the CP Blackfeather can land those on point, and of course Faint of Heart as well. Whereas you have the Vox that can use Lance as a pivot to deal damage to the back lines. So, and with the with the healing coming out from Grace as well, the side of Nebulae, or rather the side of D.Va, just looks very, very strong in terms of a very balanced, well-balanced team comp in terms of range, and of course that of the frontliner of their Grace.
Yeah, and I do think that it's going to come down to the whole execution thing, as you say, how well they're able to get that through, mostly because both teams look fairly balanced with what we've got here. I mean, as long as they follow up for the side Nebulae, if they follow up on those Impales and just make sure that Lyra is using that Imperial Sigil. Mostly, you would want to use it for Lance when he's in the front line, but holding onto it as well for if Sky gets dived on is also a good option there. And then, of course, for the side of Divine Aurora, it's just a very balanced team. I personally, I don't want to say this because you know that I love Sky, but I actually like the Divine Aurora comp they've got set up for them.
Well, definitely, I must agree with you. Margin going very aggressive onto just taking the front camps of Nebulae, and Delphi just couldn't stop that. But all in all, it will be, relatively even. But the next fight will probably be happening around this Elder Tree, and with Neon C on that Vox actually rotating down.
Yep, and both teams are going to make their way to the mid camp. However, on the side of Nebulae, they Delphi down here to 2v3 situation, so looks like Divine Aurora should just be able to win that one out with the man advantage, and they secure that mid tree, and it's going to help them a bit. We saw previously Spitfire and Neon C actually went up to lane to push it early, and I'm not sure if that would have meant that Truffy's up in lane on the Sky lost a bit, but it looks like they're fairly even right now. Truffy's actually sitting at 12 CS and Neon C back at 10, but he should be able to catch up after clearing this wave more so than likely. And yeah, I think it is just a very tough role to play the CP Sky in lane more so, but it's almost safer in some situations with the current Sky because you have to build that, I guess, more glass cannon kind of build, and then you usually have your Roma up in there in the brush watching over you, so you're less likely to die when getting ganked, whereas if you just get found out in the jungle on your own as CP Sky these days, I find a lot more than likely if you die a lot in the early game, it's really hard to get back up in the late.
Definitely, I must agree with you. But all in all, for a CP Sky to be in lane, Minimizer said so last week that he don't quite like the placement of the CP Sky, and also because we have to understand one thing: Trophy's played his CP heroes very much like a mage, so we will be expecting a lot of just Suri striking into without a proper lock-on, and it's just down to Iron Gudai on that weapon lance to try his bestest to provide some sort of peel, but Spitfire going in very deep.
Yeah, we see a fair bit of poke going on to Truffy's there, and they're going to go back to, well, the backs of their jungle and clear that out. But meanwhile, Divine Aurora going in, and they're going to be able to steal away half of the enemy jungle here, and they might even be able to secure the mid without any contest.
Iron Gudai at this point in time really can't do anything much with all three members of D.Va just rotating down into that of lane, and honestly, in this early game, although vision is not all that important, but if you realize that a team, your enemy is rotating in terms of three or in threes, then you have to set some vision down at least just to catch them out in their rotation and know where they are at every single point in time of the game. Iron Gyudai now coming in.
Oh, and that's an amazing impale coming out from the side of Nebulae. Iron Gyudai from that lance. And that is exactly what Nebulae need to do. They need to follow up on those. They weren't able to get a kill, however, but you saw the damage coming through for the side of Nebulae. Very impressive there in the early game. Of course, the weapon power lance, those impales are going to hurt. He's picked up double weapon blade to start with and a 6 Sins. And it seems like that already does a fair amount, especially when you're going up against this Black Feather and this Vox, both fairly squishy heroes. Black Feather more so in the case if he doesn't get the on point off. And at least when going against a Lance, Black Feather would be able to more than likely get the on point off. But with Sky, if Sky's able to dodge out of these, and it's what we talked about in the draft, if Sky's able to dodge out the on points, they might be able to win the fight overall against Spitfire. And they've picked up that Frostburn first as well, Trophies has on that Sky, so that should help out even more so. But right now we see Divine Aurora being very aggressive up in lane, always sticking together as a full team, and it's good to see them playing that way, because in the late game it might end up a bit tough against the side of Nebulae if they can continue to peel for trophies and land those impales coming out from Iron Gyudai.
Yep, they definitely do. I mean, or rather, Iron Gyudai really have to do and be the big man right now and just be able to just peel for trophies from the back lines. Oh, that is a very early fountain popped on Majin there. And this time, the side of Nebulae can really just push the advantage with a lack of fountain coming out from the side of Diva. However, they will just rotate into the jungle of Divine Aurora and just steal away some farms. So all in all, rather equal, I guess. You know, the side of Nebulae, the side of Diva took some farm, Nebulae stole some farm away for themselves as well. But Iron Gyudai really have an important role here. With trophies on that Sky means that he don't want to build defenses. Defense is just too mainstream for him. And on top of that as well, he will play like very much like a mage. And so, you know, Delphi is there to provide a sustain in terms of the Imperial Sigil. And of course, you have Iron Gyudai with those Gitten Wall and Impales that will just hold trophies together and keep his status as a mage to be able to just follow Barrage from afar.
Yeah, like, either I just suck at Sky right now, or you need a really good team like what Nebulae have for themselves here, and you need that synergy to really make Sky work. And I do like that Lyra pickup, now that you mention it, is going to help with the sustain to keep Sky up in that lane, keep them farming so they can get towards the items that you need. And you can see right here, Trophies just putting that damage down with the forward barrage and not really being, there's nothing really in return from the side of Divine Aurora at this point. Martian does have the fountain, but instead they're going to go back, heal up, leave it to Nyan and Spitfire to take care of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Nebulae could try take this advantage to go for a quick gold miner, but no, they're gonna have to rotate back up to lane as the minions push in.
Yep, so they will not settle for that gold miner. I mean, it is 7 minutes in, no kills as of yet. These teams definitely do respect each other as players and of course as teams as well. And we do see the very classic rotation coming up from Nebulae, just going, the both carries going through the jungle together, just go to extra ambient. And on top of that as well, the side, or rather Iron Gyudai is actually giving all the farm to Trophies 7.5 minutes in, and Trophy sitting already at 98 CS as compared to Neon C with just a mere 83 CS. So that is something that maybe Diva has to consider, that Iron Gyudai do not really have farm. Infusions picked up on Iron Gyudai at this point in time. We might see a fight break up very, very soon.
But it looks like Iron Gyudai doesn't need that farm as they go in with the Impale, landing a lot of damage on the backline onto Neon C because of the Tension Bow proc. So that's what they're trying to rely off on this early game, but once again, it's just a bit of poke here and there, no real confirmed kills coming out, and no meaningful damage, it seems, just a bit of chip damage right now, but they're moving on to the turret, but Divine Aurora staying strong, they're going to stay up there as a full team, holding their ground and making sure Nebulae don't get any early damage on that turret. Usually, if there is a more so I should say, one-sided kind of presence. If one team has the advantage in the early game, we'll see this first turret fall around the 7 to 8 minute mark. But to see right now that really no damage at all has gone over to either turrets, and that the gold difference is so negligible. It's basically the same right now, just swapping between hundreds of who has the gold lead. That both these teams playing really even so far, and it's just going to take one team fight to swing that.
Yep, and although Trophies has got, relatively, in retrospect, a little more items as compared to, say, Neon Sea, but we do not see a lot of aggression coming out whatsoever. If anything, it's almost Nebulae just really wants to farm up even more, get, the third item for Trophies, and hopefully is able to put up damage then. But then again, Lance has got a very strong early game.
Ooh, well, Lance missing that Impale is going to get punished for it as he dives in. Death from above was used, but won't be enough to save his life, as Spitfire is going to dive on in there with a Rose Offensive to pick up the first blood. And they also push Doubtfire back. Is fairly low now, probably has to use the Imperial Sigil on themselves to keep him alive, but the whole team of Divine Aurora going to push in on this one. There's the Divine Intervention coming through, very fitting name for that team right now, coming through onto the Black Feather, and they're able to take the first turret with that as well. And that's why I said when I said just one team fight is going to swing this. They managed to get first blood and the first turret just within that. The gold, however, still fairly the same for now, but when you look over at, I was going to say, if we look over at farm, but we'll have to hold on to that for just a second, whether anyone on Divine Aurora might fall, or perhaps the side of Nebulae is that being very aggressive, trying to get a return turret for the one that previously fell. Spitfire missing that on point could be crucial. Doesn't get caught out by the Impale, however. Nyon C going to be chasing down for a bit of damage there. Needs to be careful to not get caught up in that forward barrage, but moving around, trying to position themselves so they can get some damage onto Trophies. And right now, both teams going back and forth with a bit of poke. So you can see that one death, Iron Gyudai was able to get back to the lane fairly quickly, so it wasn't too bad for the side of Nebulae, but they really want to get a turret in return out of that, because now, after they break away from this team fight, Divine Aurora in the advantage.
Yep, they have got a 1k advantage, not plenty considering it's already 11 minutes in, but all in all, I guess, the side of Nebulae really has to start working on a more solid, more sustainable strategy as compared to, say, picking out the Sky and then trying to use or play Sky as a mage. All in all, we saw a lot of setups coming out from Iron Gyudai, and it's just so important, especially since Iron Gyudai is not on the captain role, do not have as much tank and wall and just tanking us all in all. So if Iron Gyudai actually misses just one impale, it will be doomed for the side of Nebulae.
Yep, and we see that Nebulae not really able to go in on anything right now because Iron Gyudai not able to find those crucial impales that they need, and not sure if Trophies is in the right position here as Martian going to dive in on them. And there's actually going to be the Crucible forced out for the side of Divine Aurora, so that's good for Nebulae right now. And there's going to be Divine Intervention as well, so if Nebulae can stay healthy enough in this fight, due to that having Lyra on that team, and if they can sustain through it, they might be able to win just over time by slowly wearing down Divine Aurora. Nyon C not gonna get caught out in that death from above, but you can see how much they're just holding that ground on the side of Divine Aurora. They're not really giving anything over to Nebulae right now.
Yep, they definitely are just holding the ground and just trying to play safe for as long as possible. But they have to understand one thing, it's that now Iron Gyudai only has got attention bow building towards that Sorrow Blade. If they just do let the guards down, then it will be easy damage for Iron Gyudai. Oh, Neon C.
Ooh. Neon going very low, so did the turret. I think if Trophies had decided to focus one or the other, they might have got in. Ooh, just the range on that forward barrage, hitting onto Spitfire and forcing them to go back as well. I think this will be the push that Nebulae need to get this turret finally. There's Lance with Impale able to get. And you were talking before about Nebulae perhaps needing to change up their strategy here. interesting to say. I do like the fact that they're deciding to hyper carry this Skye. It's going to help her a lot in the long run, but for this mid game, it is a bit dangerous if Iron View Dai goes down early in the fight or isn't able to find those impales. However, you were also mentioning the farm that Skye is ahead of Neon C, obviously at 180 over to Neon C's 158, but if you look at the overall image of each team for the CS they have, is basically the same, because Iron View Dai is still sitting only on 20 CS and Spitfire at over double that with 46. So it's more just where they're putting the gold and where they're putting these items and how they're spending this economy. I think Weapon Power Lance is one of those heroes you can kind of get around with only putting a small amount of weapon power damage into, or not so many items. It's kind of a good budget build to say, but we'll have to see how it plays out for Nebulae, as Death from Above is used on the backline. Bright Bulwark trying to keep Spitfire away, and Impale is going to miss, but that forward barrage landing all on Spitfire, and they're going to go low. Divine Intervention used to keep them in the fight. They should be able to turn this one around. Divine Aurora getting the kill onto the Lance, but Truffy's needs to be careful to not get caught out as well. There's going to be the Imperial Sigil to get them out of the fight, but is it a Nebulae going to be able to hold this turret? Well, they are, because Divine Aurora just going to ignore it and go straight for the gold mine, in fact.
Yep, and as we can tell, Truffy's once again relatively healthy throughout the team fight whatsoever. Not a lot of input in that team fight. Oh, this gold mine.
Ooh, Death from Above does miss, but it manages to get onto Margin, and they pick up a kill in return. Of course, the gold probably more beneficial at this point, especially for the side of Nebulae, as they are behind. But as you said before, the gold lead is not that much for the side of Divine Aurora, considering that we're 15 minutes in. So both these teams still fairly even. We see Divine Aurora sitting at 32k, and then just slightly behind them is Nebulae at 31.5.
Yep, and that is one thing to consider coming into this matchup as well. Vainglory generally do reward, being aggressive. So the more aggressive you are, the more likely you will close the game out, because that is how Vainglory will reward you, right? So we want to see a lot of, aggressive plays, especially with a Skye and the changes made to her lock-on damage. She does relatively more damage and don't really need that, level 12 or that 4 items before she can deal decent damage. So it kind of boggles my mind as to why Nebulae is just playing so very passively going up against Divine Aurora. Granted, Divine Aurora, not a terrible team, but all in all, they have got such stronger early game as compared to the side of Divine Aurora. I mean, Nebulae, they have got sustain coming out from Lyra, and before Black Feather even gets the Shatter Glass, they could have just bullied Black Feather.
Yeah, now that Black Feather has that Shatter Glass, and the Broken Myth is going to be very tough once he gets into the fight, and the longer the fights go on for them. Of course, Skye with the Broken Myth as well, and already the Eve, it's going to be a good sustain kit for them. But it's what I said before, a lot of Black Feather's kit relies on is getting that on point off, and for the case of CP Black Feather more so is getting the Broken Myth stacks and then using the Faint of Heart onto the enemy to get that extra damage. But Nebulae getting chased down out of the jungle of Divine Aurora. Good job by Doubtfire there to catch up with Vision, and they need to make sure that the next fight is more than likely going to be the fight that determines who gets Kraken.
I mean, Kraken has been on the fold now for 2 minutes, and once again, both Divas and Nebulae just playing very, very passively, just retreating and constantly not trying to seek for a fight. Although, understandably, the side of a Nebulae, or rather the side of Divine Aurora, definitely do have a tad more damage margin. However, will be caught out by Lance, but all in all, it will be fine.
Yes, Iron View Dai missing that Impale though, and it's now going to be Martian actually diving into the front line. Might need to be careful about that decision. You're slowly giving breaking point stacks over to the Skye, but if the side of Nebulae don't follow through with it, they're not going to be used for much right now. And the constant use of Death from Above to just keep the zoning potential for the side of Nebulae and keep the side of Divine Aurora split a lot of the time is very good. And right now we'll have to see. It's basically the only CC that the side of Nebulae can rely on is the Impale and the Death from Above. Of course, you have the Bright Bulwark from Doubtfire that can come out as well, but that's more so once the Black Feather jumps in. And I think overall Nebulae have been doing a good job to keep the death count low, but they need to be careful to not just walk into bushes like that, especially if Lance is on the jungle position and not roam, not so tanky as you're used to.
Yep,
There's going to be the wait for it coming out from Nyan C, and we can see that Iron Gudai split off from the rest of the team. They're going to have to back out of this one, and ooh, Truffy's doing a very good job of keeping them at bay. Meanwhile, Doubtfire on that back line healing up Iron Gudai, but needs to be careful because Truffy's is also low. There's the fountain used on the side of Nebulae. They might be able to swing this fight around because Majin also has used that fountain earlier on, and if they chase down, they might be able to find a kill. Iron Gudai on the prowl. Is he going to be able to get them pale? I'm not sure if he could see Majin in the bush with that one.
Yep, at this point in time, honestly, Nebulae can just go take the Kraken and just try their bestest to push. However, they will just roam in threes back up into the lane and just hopefully push that lane out all in all. Oh.
And then we see they caught out Majin, and Majin not gonna hit anyone with that Holy Nova. You can see Truffy's able to dodge their way out of there, and now Divine Aurora with no roamer, are they still going to look for the fight? There's the side of Nebulae going in, as we see Truffy's trying to find Spitfire, and there's going to be the Impale landing, but it looks like Iron Gudai, you do not want to take a 1v1 with Spitfire. He will mount you down. Meanwhile, Truffy's going to be able to pick up a kill on the box or get him low enough for Lyra to finish. And Spitfire running for his life. He's going to be caught out by that... ooh, not quite. He's caught out by the vision. But whether Truffy's can finish it, more than likely. They're going to be able to pick up the ace as well. Majin up in 3 seconds, but they should be able to make work on this Kraken. And yeah, Nebulae, kind of as you said earlier, could have been aggressive before, but they've been playing this one fairly passive.
Yep, they have been rather passive, just allowed Truffy's to farm up and of course to get Iron Gudai to get that tension bow into Sorrow Blade itself. So this is something that I've been talking about earlier on as well. It's that Nebulae, Iron Gudai, he's just so very strong in that early game. After he gets tension bow, not even before that Sorrow Blade. And the side of Nebulae could have easily just abused the amount of damage that Iron Gudai can put out. However, Nebulae did not do that, and D.Va as well did not respond in any form of aggression whatsoever, and D.Va just allowed Truffy's to farm all the way up 265 CS, just 21 minutes in. There you have it, and that is when, this is when it's just so difficult to take out Truffy's. Truffy's has got all the 4 core items, has got defenses, Halcyon boots as well.
Truffy's is full build at this point, 21 minutes in, and it's not often that you see that indeed. Even with perfect farming like Neon C on the other team, he's got 227 for 21 minutes in. That's still just over perfect farming, and they still haven't finished off that final item. They're close to it, but you can see the difference in power that Truffy's with just able to push through these turrets so easily with Kraken, and Nebulae putting that faith in to Truffy's, and Truffy's meanwhile having to put the faith in their team to make sure they get to this point of the game where we now see Nebulae so very strong. But Iron Gudai, you saw in the previous fight, can still be taken out fairly easily if they're not careful. So at the moment they're more like a second support for the side of Nebulae, but right now Nebulae didn't focus on that turret. It was more so Truffy's just trying to keep away Majin. Truffy's might get caught out now. Majin gonna dive in, but there's no follow-up there. Good death from above to zone out Nyan, and there's gonna be the follow-up with the Surge Strike into 4 Barrage, almost catching them out. And Truffy's gonna go deep. Truffy's getting very greedy here. They might be able to pick up a kill. It looks like Iron Gudai going to be able to get the kill onto box, but Spitfire not able to chase down Truffy's. The momentum and the movement right now. Oh, Truffy's sidestepping that on point, and then just playing so aggressively right now, going in again and again. They need to be careful of that mana consumption. They do have the clockwork, but right now Divine Aurora just, I don't know if they can actually deal with this. I was thinking Truffy's being a bit greedy and maybe a bit too aggressive, but perhaps they understand the power spike that they're at. To be at this point 23 minutes into the game, I mean, Truffy's already 4-0 and they have that full build. The problem now is whether Nebulae can finish the game or not.
Well, I mean, looking very, very strong. Although the goal difference do not quite show, the side of Nebulae only 2k in terms of gold lead as compared to the side of Divine Aurora. But all in all, Trophy's now just very, very strong. And even Iron Yuzai has got to another fountain, probably building it towards an Aegis, hopefully, if not, then a Crucible.
Yep, and we see Nebulae perhaps looking for another fight. Trophy's not even worrying about the minions at this point, just using them to get the target lock, get the Surge Strike off, and position themselves to use that forward rush onto the enemy. But what I worry about is if Nebulae take too long in finishing this game out, that there's more than likely a chance for the side of Divine Aurora to make a comeback just because of the fact that they'll be able to also build up on their items and get to an even kind of power level. But we'll have to see what goes down here. Angry You Die going in with Impale, it misses, but so does Spitfire's on point. There's going to be the Githian Wall into the turret, stun up Majin. Are they going to follow through on that? Not sure if they're in the right position to do so. They are definitely looking for a fight now. Nebulae being a lot more aggressive after winning a few team fights.
Yep. I mean, they could have just been aggressive since the start, and at this point in time, they can just go for the Kraken as well. Majin, though, using Crucible.
That's very good for the side of Nebulae as they've managed out the Crucible on the side of Divine Aurora. Death from above going to slow down Majin, but are they going to follow through? Iron Die doesn't find the Impale and is actually taking a lot of damage in return. They need to be careful, but wait for it, used by Nyan C. They could still decide to go in. Trophy's full health at the moment, but Spitfire able to land that on point onto them. And it looks like they're going to follow through onto Iron Die more than likely, but no. Manages to get out there, and here's the engagement coming out by the side of Divine Aurora. Fountain used instantly by Nebulae in reaction. There's Death from above, not going to hit Neon C, but it's going to keep Spitfire separated, and Divine Intervention going to be used on Spitfire to keep him alive, but Sky mounting him at this point. One more Surrey Strike should be enough to finish him. Surrey into the forward barrage from behind, and now, great use of the Death from above to separate Neon C if they're able to land onto them, and there is the forward barrage to take them out. Trophy's playing like a god at this point, and Majin just gonna dive in. They know they can't escape this one, trying to bait it out as long as they can. There's the double kill, the unofficial triple for Trophy's, and they're gonna push through. Iron Die did fall in that fight, but luckily Doubtfire didn't and was able to help out Trophy's to stay alive as well. They have the aced up minions. They're not even gonna go for Kraken. There's 22 seconds until Spitfire's on the board, and I'm sure right now Trophy's is more than confident they can take them out.
Yep, for Trophy's, or rather for Iron Die on the lance just before he went down, he actually manages to just throw out the last fountain, the last breath of fountain for Trophy's, just survive a little longer in that particular team fight. But Spitfire maybe have got an answer, but the Crystal going down very, very low. And the first game will go over to Nebulae and of course Trophy's.
Yes, Nebulae and Trophy's. Well, it's a whole team effort there, and that is what I'd like to mention of, like, to play Sky that well, there is the whole skill asset to it, but then there's also needing to have a team that's going to synergize with you that well, a team that's going to support you that much. And it's not always that we see the Sky gets hyper carried, but as long as the team just supports you enough and you have good enough communication there, Sky is still very viable and very meta. But what we saw in this first matchup today was Sky just getting hyper carried like no other. 295 CS by the end of that game at 26 minutes per 8 in, and Trophy's wasn't even focusing on farm towards the end of that. As you said, you mentioned, I think by 21 minutes in, we saw they already had their full build. So,
I think it was 19 minutes.
19 minutes?
Yeah, 19 minutes.
Wow, so that is definitely well played by the side of Nebulae, and Divine Aurora doing a good job there throughout most of the game, holding their ground, keeping their defenses. A very close game at the early to mid, and then it really started to swing for the side of Nebulae. So we'll just have to see how things go into the next match. But is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Honestly, once you realize your opponents are hyper farming the carry, maybe you should try it. But all in all, I understand why Divine Aurora did not attempt to hyper farm Neon C on that Fox, and it's because Blackfeather himself needs relatively quite an amount of farm as well. So that is one thing to consider. But all in all, I think it was just very good drafting. And of course, like I said, it is just down to Nebulae whether or not they can execute the team comp flawlessly. And this is what I'm talking about, flawlessly. They just really need to protect trophies as a carry. And they just go in to sacrifice themselves, or rather be punching bags for the side of Divine Aurora.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it's going to be based on, like we saw, they both did a very good draft, and I think that more than likely, Divine Aurora could come back easier if they're going to work on shutting down any of those hyper carry comps, if that's what Nebulae decide to try and pull a second time. But do you think that'll be the case? I mean, we'll kind of have to just wait and see what kind of draft they go with. But in terms of play style, would you think that it's a very Nebulae thing to do? To always go for the hyper carry?
Well, I would not say it's a very Nebulae thing to do, but all in all, it has been quite a pattern that is ongoing as well. Whenever Nebulae plays, they do generally just want to hyper farm that of trophies, because trophies would usually be the hard crystal carry for the side of Nebulae, whether or not he's on that Scarf. If not, then Celeste, he's just so good on it, Celeste and Scarf, and CP Idris as well. So whenever he's on this like hyper carry mode, or rather hyper carry heroes, where he requires 4 damage items, 3 damage items, or 4 or 5 damage items work, then he'll always require some sort of hyper carry to get him there very, very early into game.
Yeah, and with that, I believe that the draft is almost ready. So without further ado, let's go into the draft for the second match. And we are here in the ban phase. And previously, we saw a Glaive ban on the blue side and a Catherine ban on the red for the first bans coming through. Will it be something similar, or are they just going to throw us off meta bans for trolls? No, we hope that's not the case. We're expecting some very meta bans of either those CC heavy heroes, those aggressive roamers that I like to call them, or the mage heroes such as Celeste and Scarf. And with that, we're just waiting on this first ban to come through. It's going to be the Lyra ban, and we know that this time it's Divine Aurora on your blue side, and we've got Nebulae on your red. And last time, Nebulae had that Lyra pickup alongside Lance and Sky. So what do you think about that as the first ban?
I personally don't think that, Lyra was really the cause of the bulk of Divine Aurora's problem, but the Lance being picked up first, definitely a good pick for the side of Divine Aurora. Lance at this point in time provides a lot of CCs and a lot of crowd controls throughout, and scales just very, very well. Granted, you do not have the healing that Grace can provide. However, the side of Divine, or rather the side of Nebulae, can easily just pick up maybe that of Finn. Finn is kind of good at this point in time. If not, then Arden as well, just to boost that movement speed and that extra health barrier on top of that. So, but we will be seeing a Finn and a Castro being banned out.
Okay, well, that Finn pickup, I mean, both teams doing a similar strategy, I could say, to what they did before about picking the roamers first, but this time, instead of 2 very aggressive roamers like we saw last time, Grace was not a bad pick at all. I thought that the Lance and Grace pick first off last game were very good, but perhaps Nebulae picking this Finn to fit more into that strategy, and Finn's starting to come back into the meta a bit more these days. We've seen him being played a lot more, but they're going to pick up that Sky once again. And this is where I'm slightly confused. I personally thought that Lyra ban was a good ban. I thought they were going for it to try deter and get the side of Nebulae away from picking that Sky, because last time in that whole laning phase, Sky was able to sustain quite well during the early game thanks to Lyra. It could be something similar if you like to look at it, with the fact that, well, Sky will be in the lane as long as Finn is close enough. Polite company will keep Sky from taking so much damage, in that sense sustaining Sky a bit more, but usually you wouldn't pick very mobile heroes with Finn, just because you need to keep him close to make full usage of your abilities, and Idris was let through. Last time we did see the Idris ban coming out in the second slot for the red team, which was Divine Aurora last time, and they're now going to pick him up themselves.
Yep, I mean, Idris it works very, very well with that of Lance. I'm not surprised if they'll settle for that Taka. Wait. They are just, messing with my head right now. With the Sky, usually people want to settle for the Taka, as we all know. You can go for the Shatterglass Clockwork Build, burst Sky down, and afterwards the entirety of Nebulae would not have a carry anymore. But opting for a weapon lance and a Catherine, I guess all in all, it is relatively decent as a comp. But hyper carrying an Idris against Sky, you need to run that weapon Idris, yeah? So you can stick on to Sky, you can blink past Sky's Suri Strike, if not then Fort Barrage. That way you are very mobile as a hero. Whereas your CP Idris, you really want to have the Chakram damage, your basic attack, your range damage as well. It is like pitting a fox going up against a Sky. Will you do fine? Yeah, I guess you do fine relatively well, but having a Sky, he can't just outdance you all in all. However, we will be seeing Angry Die this time on that Taka.
Well, it will be Iron You Die on that Taka indeed, but the team comp coming out from Nebulae, it's good. I mean, they don't have the Taka going against them, but I am rather confused as to why the side of Divine Aurora didn't pick up that Taka in the first place. So I guess they just want to go weapon-powered Lance. They saw that as working well last time. It is a good lockdown comp. They do have the Impale and the Merciless Pursuit there for CC, and it should help out if they're going CP to land those Chakram hits and get the full damage coming out from the incoming and outgoing Chakram. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But because I'm a bit confused, chat, let me know which team you guys are cheering for and which team you are going to put your hype towards for this second matchup between Divine Aurora and Nebulae as we get ready to head on to the fold. But with that, Luxuria, always the question of which team are you cheering for?
I must say it will be Nebulae. Although the team coming out from Nebulae, it's rather different, interesting, but I guess it will work because as long as Trophies is farmed up, get the 3 core items, can put a lot of damage, and on top of that as well, Idris cannot run far with that Force Accord, and you have Taka to just chase down anyways. Taka being so mobile should be able to just, dodge out the roots, and of course the Impales and the Githian Wall coming up from Lance. If Taka can manage to do that, jump on top of Idris, remove Idris really, really quickly, then Lance would just be no fight whatsoever in any team fight, right? It would not pose as a threat. All in all, a very thick wall in terms of Finn. Finn, very, very slow hero, so might allow that of the CP Idris to get his way because of the Chakram. But all in all, I think Finn can hold, or rather soak up relatively a lot of damage, or relatively enough damage for Sky to just put out 2 times or even 3 times damage in that late game. So what I'm expecting to see will be early aggression coming out from maybe the side of Diva, and for the side of Nebulae, we will be seeing a rather passive adventure coming into this game.
Okay, well, with that, I think that if you're going to put it that way, I'm still a bit on the fence as well. It really is going to be how much Divine Aurora can push that early aggression, and I think it will be quite important to make sure they shut down that Sky early on, and even Taka worry about depending on which way this Taka decides to build. But something I didn't think about until now is we're going to be seeing a weapon power Taka. So that didn't cross my mind before, and I'm just wondering about the effectiveness as compared to a CP Taka.
Well, honestly, for a weapon power Taka, you don't really have your ability damage. But what you have going for you is very high base attack power. And with that,
Oh, and Higher Angry Die getting caught out instantly, but Polite Company not going to be enough to help him get out of there. That was the Merciless Pursuit into the Impale, into the Githium Wall, I believe, and then the Chakram to just clean up with some more damage. Oh my, the side of Divine Aurora, they can continue getting single picks off like that. I think that will be tough for Doubtfire on this Finn to really protect his team, and this is what I liked about the Great's pickup. It's a bit more mobile, it's a bit more aggressive, and Finn not being a bad roamer, it's just if your team is out of position, it's very hard for you to get to them to save them.
Yep, definitely, but what happened there was I got stuck in the root from the Elder Treant and thus unable to just dodge out all the damage. But all in all, it was a rather incredible reaction time coming up from Iron Gudai on that Taka. Oh, but we do see Sky though picking up the Catherine in lane.
Yeah, there's one good point about picking up Sky for the side of Nebula. They've got the Catherine on the enemy team. Sky very good at ripping through that Stormguard shield and able to put the damage down fairly easily. We're going to see the first rotation back. Trophy's now with 22 farms, so doing a good job of farming on their own, but we'll have to see whether the side of Nebulae want to continue to give or hyper carry trophies on this Sky this time, because Iron Ryu Dai is going to have quite a lot of trouble in the early game, I'd say. Do you think this Taka needs those kind of items that like a lot more important than if you're playing on this weapon power lance that we see on the side of Divine Aurora and that we saw previously for Nebulae?
Yep, definitely. I mean, Taka, all in all, if he is going to run that weapon Taka, then you need relatively quite an amount of items to work effectively, just to put on as many basic attacks, just to stack the mortal wound as well. So, you know, Iron Gudai probably will settle for that Spell Sword. Spell Sword works relatively well with Taka. Granted, Glaive is the better contender for Spell Sword, but all in all, I think it will be well for Iron Gudai. But at this point in time, we have seen a lot of Takas in Southeast Asia just deciding to go Iron Gudai here, though taking a lot of damage from Neon Sea on that lance, but will just back off. But all in all, in Southeast Asia, we see a lot of double weapon blades pick up on Taka in the early game just to aid the farming, and all in all, just to, you know, deal up more damage onto enemies' hero.
Sky needs to be careful, is getting surrounded by the team of Divine Aurora, and they get caught out by the Impale. It's going to land around there, picking up a nice kill. Tension Bow proc, I think, was still available for them, seeing as it's Nion's only item. They rushed that instantly as soon as they could, and now they're going to try get some damage in return onto this turret, and very good job with the Githium Wall to push away Iron Gudai as they returned up to that lane, stopping them from engaging onto anyone. But you can see there, Truffy's positioning themselves in the top rush. They want to get some damage down onto Spitfire, but this is where I brought up the problem before, Doubtfire just not being able to get close enough to his teammates to save them. The Polite Company is meant to be able to make up for that generally, but it's rarely not enough, whereas with a hero like if they had picked up Grace as their roamer, Grace would have been able to jump in and then possibly knock up the enemies with Holy Nova, then allowing for a much more safer escape, whereas with having the spin and the Polite Company, it's only going to add a bit more defense, and then you're not really going to get Trophies out of there because they're still going to get locked down with the stuns.
Yep, but what we're going to see here would be Iron Gudai on a CP Taka building towards a Storm Crown, and then of course we have Trophies going for that Weapon Sky build. Tons of basic attack damage, very fast basic attack damage if you don't ask me. Probably going to settle for that Breaking Point into Double Tyrant's Monaco. If not, then Breaking Point, Tyrant's Monaco, and then Tornado Trigger. That is one build that I've seen quite often as well. But all in all, I do not sit well with a Weapon Sky. I mean, I've seen it work before, but the issue with Weapon Sky really is that you can't quite, or rather you don't have the ability to just be very, very strong in the late game. You are kind of iffy in your positioning, your stance, right? So you are kind of weak in the early game. You deal relatively quite an amount of damage in the early game, but comes the mid game, you deal your most damage. But once people stack armor up on you, then in the late game you just do close to nothing.
Oh, and we see right there, Iron Gudai but getting stunned up instantly. And there's the aggression. Oh, Truppy's dodging that out barely with a Surrey Strike, and then Nionc gonna get caught up in the death from above. Amazing positioning. Can Angry Die pick up the kill? They will, and that's going to be a good kill in return and helps push away beside Divine Aurora, who are putting down a lot of aggression up in lane for most of this game so far. And you could just see that, it shows that although it's a weapon power Sky this time, and you might be a bit worried for it because of the previous like success rate and stuff, but this is Trophies on Sky, and I'm interested. I am personally a CP Sky main and fan, and I do prefer that, but I'm definitely interested to see how this weapon power Sky works out for them. And I think if anyone's going to do it, Trophies could, because you see the just general skills and mechanics are still there. But now we see that looks like Idris getting caught out up in lane. Protector's Contract was used to keep Spitfire alive, stop him from taking a bit more damage. So it's interesting to see that on the side of Divine Aurora that picked up that Protector's Contract, but you'd think with the engage coming out from this side, coming out from Divine Aurora, that Nebulae would also go for a Protector's Contract because there's so much dive.
Well, I mean, Protector's Contract is one of those items you pick up in the very early in the game itself.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, if they were to have picked that instead of the normal contract that they have on Finn at the start of the match.
No, but I guess because Spitfire in itself, as an Idris, you do not do a lot of damage in that of the early game. So putting that into account, you don't quite need to say, pick up that that contract to provide that health barrier anyways, because Delphi provides relatively good health barrier, or rather not health barrier, but fortified health in terms of that polite company. So with that, then they don't really need to pick up the Protector's Contract. Maybe the Iron Guard will work, maybe that... So, I'll just have to hold my point.
Oh, well, it looks like the team's just poking back and forth. We should be good to continue talking about, because I think at this point, even if we see Taka jump onto the backline, there's not going to be any kills going down, but there's the Caster's Curse slowly in the works as we see a lot of damage being traded across the board. And yeah, it looks like Taka going to back out of that fight, so if you'd like to... I want to say if you'd like to continue your point, but Divine Aurora being so aggressive right now, they're going all in. There's the Impale into the Giftium wall, and Idris going to pick it up with the Chakram, but Taka returning up to lane. I'm not sure what the two of them can do. Angry Die and Trophies trying to fight this one. There's the Shimmer Strike onto Trophies, and the stun followed up by Majin, but Majin now on the run away from that weapon power Sky, and Angry Die probably going to be able to pick up a return kill, and they did. So Roma for Roma right now, fairly even across the board. We got 3-3 kills and 19k gold on the side of Divine Aurora over to the 19.9 for the side of Nebulae, and we saw just before Angry Die able to steal away some farm, but whether they're going to get caught out here between Nion and Spitfire is the question. No, they're going to be able to use the X-Retsu over Nion and get out of there.
Yep, and this is, okay, to continue on my point, having the Protected Contract in that early game will definitely grant health barrier on top of the fortified health, but I don't think that is quite needed, especially with the range coming up from Sky as well, as compared to an Idris. So I guess the Iron Guard would help in terms of sustain against an Idris. If Idris do come in to try to go in a 1v1 with you, then you do 8 with the sustain, but I might have to hold my thought.
Yeah, as we see Trophies going very low, Fountain, you get them of there alive, and whether Divine Aurora decide to push this one now that they have forced the Fountain out from the side of Nebula is a question, and the answer is yes, as they go in with Impale, and it's going to be Lance diving in deep. He manages to pick up a kill, but trades his own life for it. Not sure if that's the outcome you want to see, because Iron Die is still up in the lane, and they're going to be looking for Spitfire. They should wait a second longer for the fortified health to go down, because they're going to fall to this Idris, but Doubtfire does not have the mobility to chase and pick up a kill. Are they going to be able to get with it? No, not quite. The Polite Company not reaching, and they might fall themselves. It looks like they will. Spitfire playing a very risky game and manages to get out of it alive, pushing the kill lead in favor of the side of Divine Aurora and pushing that gold lead to even now.
Yep, and this is something that I was talking about as well. For a weapon Sky, you really want to stay in a team fight for a very long time because of just the basic attack, and you are going to use Suri Strike to just reposition yourself, and it's not quite, you know, I don't think it's quite meta, and I don't think it has found itself into the meta only because of this reason, because your basic attack in general, or rather your kit in itself, do not quite support this weapon build.
Yep, and we see the first turret falling over to the side of Divine Aurora as they're able to pick it up. They definitely have the advantage right now, but whether they're going to be able to keep it is the question, as both teams kind of looking for a fight here. And Martian going to lose that shield in just a second, but Angry Die dodging out the Impale, going very low. The CP Idris almost picking up the kill. Fountain being used to save his life, though. Meanwhile, it looks like the Forster Core going to be up to the land. They're just trying to find something out of this. Merciless Pursuit lands onto Angry Die, who needs to be very careful now. They have Bukaku available for a bit of heal, but the damage in return coming out from Divine Aurora quite impressive as well. Both teams have that Fountain down, so it's the question of whether they still want to fight and if they have the confidence in it. Of course, Taka has Bukaku available to constantly continue healing up, but it looks like Divine Aurora going to go in with the steal, and there's the Impale to get it. And meanwhile, we see Doubtfire going low, and Sky on the backline getting picked up by Spitfire. Taka just running for his life, doesn't want to hand over the ace, is actually going to stay around to farm, knows he has Bukaku around. He is a ninja, of course. Is he going to be able to get something from it? He dives onto down C and gets a kill. I guess they didn't expect Taka to still be around.
Yeah, but I guess that is quite a good kill for Taka, but Idris coming back for more.
Oh, and there's Bukaku used. He's fairly low in energy right now and has to back out of that fight.
Yeah, but all in all, I must say that the team comp of Nebulae, they are not the worst team comp, if you were to ask me, but all in all, what is happening right now is that Trophies cannot put out enough damage as compared to, say, Neon Sea with that very burst, you know, high burst, Tension Bolt, and Sorrow Blade. And on top of that as well, or rather Spitfire on their CP Idris has got very high burst as well. So none of these heroes really want to stay in a team fight for way too long, but Trophies wants to. Trophy's end goal is just to stay in there, build up as much breaking point stacks as possible, and then just destroy and demolish everyone on the fold. But CP Idris and a Weapon Lance don't want to quite do that. They just want to burst you down and get done and over with.
Well, it's definitely very similar to last game, except the roles have been switched around. This time Divine Aurora being that team really looking for the lockdown, and I guess that's why the Finn pickup isn't so bad in the end, because you know that Divine Aurora are going to be jumping onto you. The question is whether you're going to be in the right position when they do to save your carries, as I kept mentioning before. And we'll have to see here as Doubtfire using Polite Company, followed up by the Quibble, managed to get the stun, but Death from Above not going to land. Sky using great positioning on that Surrey Strike to get around, but Spitfire needs to be careful now whether he's going to focus Trophies or Angry Die. Instead uses the the Shimmer Strike. I always call it the Shroud Step and the Shimmer... No, I always call it the Shroud Strike and the Shimmer Step. I get them mixed up. But we see that great usage of that as they're able to get out there, and there's the block coming off, and a bit presumptuous with that Death from Above, thinking that they'd be able to get them all in that, and Martian diving in deep might pay the price for it, but meanwhile it's going to allow the rest of the team on Divine Aurora to get into the backline, picking up a kill on Sky. Angry Die going to fall, but manages to stay Catherine with him, and it's only Doubtfire left on the spin, just eating up the damage, and that's going to be the ace for the side of Divine Aurora.
And this is what I'm talking about. Neon Sea went in with an Impale, immediately taking out Trophies. And they are, the side of Tifa really don't want to just play around and just extend and elongate a team fight. Whereas if you say it is quite a reflection of the previous match itself, in the previous match we have Vox, we have that of, say, Black Feather, and from the side of Nebula came out with that of Lance and Sky. So granted, the Lance in the previous match really just want to peel for Sky, but it's generally just a very stagnated fight all in all, not very bursty. Oh, I will die.
Yep, and we do see the burst on Divine Aurora now as jump in onto that Taka, not able of a kill, however. Blast Trap was used to push away Nebulae, but they need to push in onto this turret and get the damage that they need. Make the most out of this Kraken. Death from Above's going to zone them out, and they should have taken this turret a bit sooner, but they managed to get in the end. They're now diving in full force right onto Doubtfire, and it's going to be the return kill onto that Lance, who dived into the front line too deep. A double kill for the side of Nebula, and they're just trying to keep Sky alive at this point. Are they going to be able to burn through the shield? And they will. A triple kill for the weapon power. Sky, very impressive. All the meanwhile, Angry died just diving all over the backline, just dancing around in the chaos, I should say. And they managed to save that anchor turret just barely. So somehow Nebulae managed to turn that one around. And yeah, it's the previous statement of it being similar, at least the side of Divine Aurora. It's similar to they picked up Nebulae's I guess strategy, except this time they're not so focused on the hyper carry as much. Do you think that would have worked out for them better if they had gone for a hyper carry situation and left a low budget kind of Lance build?
I personally will not. I mean, Spitfire now has 3 core items building towards the Shatter Glass. If not that, yeah, probably that Shatter Glass, or if not, then Eve of Harbors. I have seen quite a number of Eve of Harbors on CP Idris, all in all. But what is happening if they do? I mean, Lance is building relatively budgetly, right? Economically, he's not having a lot of damage, but he's just very, very high burst. But another team fight will be happening.
They managed to get the Merciless Pursuit onto Trophies to lock them down, but Angry Die going to take the opportunity to jump in onto the backline through the death from above. So meanwhile, that Divine Aurora is being forced back to that turret, but Nebulae yet to really land any significant damage onto this first objective. And we can see that Angry Die trying to focus down Spitfire, but great predictions coming out by Nyan C, able to land that Impale as Taka was actually flipping back over, and there's going to be a good block. And then the Echo use of that Impale. Truffy's trying to do their best to get out of this situation. They're actually going to use the Surrey Strike to go the other way, and oh, Doubtfire using the Force Accord, but a second too late. Instead, just brings Nyan C closer to them and brings the side of Divine Aurora closer to the ace and possibly the game. We see Angry Die up in 4 seconds, but what can he do alone? The rest of his team still miles away before they get up, and there's both turrets going down simultaneously. Angry Die going to jump in there, try and do what he can, try and take it out this Idris at least, but the Crystal is going to go down before he can even get that. And that's going to be the game going over to the side of Divine Aurora. Very much opposite game of what we saw in the first round.
Yep, and honestly, I really like the Echo picked up on the side of this weapon Lance, but all in all, it's just that Trophies really like the initial burst damage, all in all, and thus the side of Diva could just capitalize on the lack of damage coming out from Trophies before he builds that breaking point stacks, and they just jump in and just was very relentless with their onslaught, and the